Former President Donald Trump heads back to court for closing arguments this week in New York City, where he faces those 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Joining us now, former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time on the cusp of this historic week that's about to get underway. Closing arguments, they are tomorrow. It's been weeks now. What can we expect? Which side has the biggest argument to make? Which side has the most to win or lose based on these closing arguments going forward, defense or prosecutors?
It seems to me, at least from what I've been hearing about this case, it's been a total disaster for the prosecution, and they really need to tie this case together, because what they're going to try to do is try to say this case does not hinge solely on Michael Cohen's credibility, but there's all this corroboration to support Michael Cohen through documents, through the fact that payments were made. But their problem is the things that support Michael Cohen are not illegal. So, you know, the idea that the crime which is alleged is essentially that they indicated that these were legal expenses as opposed to some other business expense, because there's nothing illegitimate about the payments being made at all. And the defense is going to, on the other hand, get on there and say everything that they've said depends on Michael Cohen's credibility. And here are the reasons you shouldn't believe Michael Cohen. He has an incentive for Donald Trump to be convicted. He hates Donald Trump. He stole from Donald Trump. He illegally recorded Donald Trump. He's lied multiple times about the same case. He's lied on the stand during this very case. So for one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life as a juror, whether or not to convict somebody of a felony and potentially restrain their liberty, you're going to rely on Michael Cohen, who you wouldn't rely on for anything. You wouldn't buy a house from him. You wouldn't get surgery for Michael Cohen if he was a doctor. And the defense will put it all on Michael Cohen, and the government, I think, has a very hard road on this, but I still think they have a home court advantage with this judge that's been quite favorable to them, and a jury that may be predisposed to hate Donald Trump. And those are things that are very favorable, and it's hard to know how they would factor into this case, because objectively this case is utterly laughable as a criminal case. I've done this, you know, I was a criminal prosecutor for 19 years and never seen anything this bad in terms of the witnesses and the seriousness of the case. Yeah,
so you're not the only analyst that has made that argument in this case, and all of us outside of that jury room have been able to watch the news and listen to the analysts and listen to people that have made the argument, these smart lawyers across the country that have made this argument, that enough hasn't been done to convince the jury that there was some other crime, that these falsified records were created to cover up something to do with election interference along those lines. But the jury themselves, you know, they're not supposed to be watching the news and the analysis and getting different ideas. They're just stuck with what they hear in that courtroom, and then they're going to go behind closed doors. That's a different experience from what many of us here in America have done as we try to keep up with this trial where there are no cameras in the courtroom. What's it going to be like for those 12 jurors?
Yeah, that's a good question, because assuming they're following the judge's instruction and not hearing all the noise around, meaning all the media around, they've just heard what's in the case, and assuming they're taking the role seriously and they can put aside their biases against Donald Trump, assuming they have them, I think, you know, they're just going to look at what the evidence was. And this evidence, if you're a juror, and just my experience in cases, jurors want to see something that's serious and a serious crime. And they have this case where somebody indicated something that in the bookkeeping that should have been marked as something else. This isn't a murder. This isn't a crime where they call it a fraud, but no one lost money. No one was victimized. So I can't see a jury really looking at, if they're able to put everything aside, to even look at this as serious. And another flaw with the government's case, or the prosecutor's case, is they didn't even indicate what these expenses should have been marked as. They just said they shouldn't have said they were legal expenses. Well, what should they have been? They didn't present any evidence on that front, and these were expenses paid to a lawyer. This whole thing just is kind of, in a way, confusing, but also it's hard to see what, you know, a jury wants to look at something and say, what went wrong here? Who was harmed? You know, we're there to basically rectify some sort of injustice, and you don't even look at, you know, Donald Trump really almost looks like a victim in sort of a bunch of shakedowns in this case, if you looked at this sort of from the outside. So it'll be very interesting how they analyze it, if they ask questions, what they are.
I would be so interested to talk to all these jurors afterwards to find out what happened in there. My heart's pounding just thinking about, this verdict coming in. It's going to be a fascinating week. I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about something else. Hunter Biden also starting his trial. This is on June 3rd, so right around the corner. This is the federal gun case we're talking about. Interesting developments there. What does addict mean? There's an interesting effort on the part of his lawyers to talk about this word and what exactly it means. Let's take a look at the first screenshot we have that kind of helps explain in the Hunter Biden gun case. This application, he had marked no to being an addict, but there's some information per court filings this week that Biden's lawyers are implying and suggesting that he might deny having been an addict at the exact time of the gun purchase made because he had recently gotten out of rehab. Your thoughts on that strategy as yet this trial gets underway?
I think that's going to be a failed strategy. You look at Hunter Biden, and he's used his addiction as an excuse to get out of every responsibility in his life virtually. And now when it's harmful to him and it's not a benefit, it's not an excuse, this happens to be the time he wasn't addicted to drugs. It's truly laughable because it's like we have all of this evidence. You have cocaine residue, I think, found in the, case where the gun was kept. This idea that, okay, he's a drug addict until the point he buys a gun, and then when his girlfriend, who was his brother-in-law's former wife, throws the gun away, that happens to be the time when he had put all the drug use and drug addiction behind him for a very short period of time. I think it's a tough needle to thread, and I still think this case might end up being a plea because I think this is incredibly embarrassing to not only Hunter Biden but to the family, and ultimately, I think people need to look at this. Joe Biden has the ability to pardon Hunter Biden if he's convicted. It might make sense for him to plead guilty, and after the election, Joe Biden could just pardon him, which I really think will happen here because I don't know that this defense will be anything other than laughable if they're trying to say, he's a drug addict other than when he has a gun, and then that's when he's not. I don't see that playing very well with a jury that's looking at this. I think it would just be maybe the only defense they have, but I don't think it'll be very effective.
We'll see if things actually get underway on June 3rd. Jonathan Fahey, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little bit of your time on this Memorial Day. We appreciate it. Greg?
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.